good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Caught in the cup, hitting the cup again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local, national, Native news events. Native news and events. I've never had problems with that sentence. Is this live? Can we do it again? No, I'm just kidding. Hey, so we discuss Native news and events, and as you know, Chujunk, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Yes, you are right, Dega. This portion of the show is supported by JS Bean Factory off Randolph Avenue in St. Paul. Only the good stuff keeps us awake.
You know, been doing the show. This is our 9th season. January, the first Saturday of January was when we started Native Roots Radio back in the day, 8 years ago, and we're in our 9th season. And you would think that I'd become maybe a better reader or enunciator or talker, but I think I've plateaued, years ago.
Oh, well, that's what happens when you get into your elder years and you start getting grandkids.
Yeah.
No, you do great.
Oh, there you go. You deserve a raise next year.
Ooh, everyone heard that.
No, yeah. Hey, we got a lot going on here this weekend. Some major things with our relatives in Wisconsin, Haley, and maybe you can give a shout out to our friend Doug and talk about what's going on in Madison this weekend.
I would love to. Yeah, it's always important when we are able to share things going on in Wisconsin. As we know, well, you and I are Ho-Chunk and we live in Minnesota. So this is something our friend Doug Hewer let me know about, the Building Unity Conference this weekend, January 11th through the 12th in Madison, Wisconsin. The Cross-Border Organizing Working Group will participate in a panel discussion and breakout on environmental justice. You can sign up for this 2-day conference at buildingunitywwisconsin.org. The Cross-Border Organizing Group, also known as CBOWG, will also be visiting the site near Cambridge, Wisconsin. We talked about this little on the show earlier, where 70,000 gallons of Enbridge Line 6 oil spilled in early November, and we just heard about it, I don't know, before the winter break. But the Wisconsin DNR was notified of the spill on November 11th and the 14th. The DNR approved permits for the reroute of the Line 5 pipeline around Bad River. So on Monday, January 13th, that cross-border organizing group will hold an action at the Wisconsin DNR to show disapproval of their Line 5 permitting. A press release will also be forthcoming with the details about that and the DNR action in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about the DNR. My goodness, we've had issues here with Line 3 in Minnesota with the DNR. The DNR does not seem to be our friend, and that's really disappointing. Every time I read something about this, that the DNR passes things that really are not really good values to it, core values. And,
Yeah.
We all know pipelines leak no matter what. There's a big history of it, and 70,000 gallons, my goodness.
Yeah, which
very
was
sad.
like originally reported as just like 2 gallons spilled, and then it was going up and up. And I guess, Enbridge isn't, responsible, or, they don't have to put out a statement when things like that happened, which I don't really understand why.
Yeah. And, just with the way things are going here too, this is a good thing to do, and to be around like-minded people in Madison this coming weekend. So it's really important. People listening to this, tell their friends and make sure they go out there. But thanks, Doug, for reaching out to us, and it's an important thing that we need to bring out, and I'm glad we can. And we jokingly talk about this is our 9th year. Just want to remind everyone the reason why we started this show 9 years ago was because of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Standing Rock and all the misinformation and that was going on there. I mean, Wendy and I would be there, and then we'd hear reports that were totally incorrect for what we saw with our lying eyes. My goodness. And so we are all about supporting our water protectors and supporting Mother Earth and Father Sky here on Native Roots Radio. And that's a thing that I'd like to bring up, that this is where we're coming from, and this is not good, and we need to resist, divest, and join a group and run for office.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're interested in uniting for peace, justice, sustainability, and democracy, and you're around Madison, Wisconsin this weekend, January 11th and 12th, definitely check out what's going on at the Wisconsin State Capitol for that unity gathering. That'll be from 9 to 4 p.m. each Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, our prayers are out to California, Haley, and one of the things that was really interesting is that I keep on seeing reports of our relatives going to help with this fire, and it's the Navajo Scouts fire attack crew is headed to California, and they're there now.
Yeah.
The devastation there is unbelievable, and we have among all the people that are being affected by this smoke, fire, burning their houses down, we have like 250 Ho-Chunk relatives that at least live out in California. I know California's a big state, and I'm trying to find if any of our relatives, find out if any of our relatives are being affected by this. So prayers out to everyone in California and Ho-Chunk, and kudos to the Navajo Scouts fire attack crew that's headed out there, that is there right now.
Yeah, definitely. Got to keep our sage up, tobacco down for our relatives out there in California and our animal relatives.
Yeah, definitely. And Wendy will talk about that later today.
Yeah.
So locally here in the Twin Cities, we have Dakota Winter Teaching in Indigenous Artistry at the Wazee Winter Wind Celebration, and that's at a Battle Creek Winter Rec area in St. Paul, and it's 11 to 4, and that's something that maybe we should send you to and report on.
I wish I could go to this. Yeah, I really wanted to go. This is Saturday, so tomorrow, January 11th in St. Paul. It's the Dakota Winter Teachings. It'll be fun. I know there's going to be artists like Marlena Miles, who's been on the show, Heather Fidelity, Tina Gatuin, and more for this dynamic event, blending Dakota ancestral teachings with a modern Indigenous creativity twist. I know there'll be outdoor and indoor activities. So if it's a little too cold this weekend, there will be stuff indoors to do that honor tradition, artistry, and the joy of winter. There'll be snow sculpting, snowshoe making, cordage crafting with Fern Renville Indigenous Winter Market, also with over 20 vendors. So all that extra holiday cash, if you need to spend it, it's burning a hole in your pocket, go support some Native artists there. This will be Battle Creek Winter Rec Area, 75 to Winthrop Street in St. Paul on Saturday. That'll be fun. I know they're going to have free cross-country skiing and kick sledding. We might need a little bit more snow for that, but that sounds fun. I wish I could go. Unfortunately, I will be out of town.
Yes, so I will be in New York, and we're going to go. Two things we're going to do definitely in the city, and one of them is at the Pack Theater, where we saw Between Two Knees. There's a Native American, I believe, comedian that's going to be there, and she was brought up in Brooklyn amongst all these Italians, and she probably have a good perspective as a Native in front of all these Italians. So that'll
Sounds
be
fun.
Yeah, it does. And then, of course, we're going to go to the Vikings bar in Manhattan Sunday night and watch the Vikings.
Awesome.
So,
Full Vikings.
right on. Hey, good luck, Packers and Skol Vikings. And up next, we're going to have our friend, State Senator Mary Kunesh, on with some updates over this long holiday, and we'll have to reevaluate that for next year, maybe do 3 weeks. Oh, hey, we'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Then we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Native American Community Development Institute, or NACD, in Minneapolis. And here is Minnesota State Senator Mary Kunesh with a couple updates from over the last 2 weeks while we were on break.
Matakiape, it is State Senator Mary Kunesh here with you today. It's a chilly, chilly day in Minnesota. Cold with no snow, which is so unbelievable that we are here in the beginning of January 9th, and we have no snow on the ground, or little to no snow on the ground. It is definitely an indicator of the change in our global climate. And I'm not sure how we will ever get the snow back the way we had, or the way that I remember as a kid, walking through thigh-high snow and being able to, go outside and build snow forts and go sledding, all of those things. But Minnesota is way behind on its snowfall, and I have to say, for me, I'm missing it quite a bit. I want to wish you all a happy new year and all the best in this new year. I had a great holiday season with my family and my grandchildren and the extended family. Unfortunately, for some of us, it wasn't me, but some of us ended up with all kinds of illnesses, from COVID to the flu to shingles. And so just want to remind all of you how important it is that you get your annual inoculations against these things. I will admit that until last year, I never got a flu shot and was always a little leery about getting any of these inoculations, but I have come to realize the value of it. I had a sister that got a terrible case of shingles, and then she kind of recuperated and had 2 good days, and then came down with a bad case of COVID. And we want to make sure that that's not the case, especially when we recognize how vulnerable our American Indian population is to so many of these viruses. You know, it wasn't so long ago that we were in the thick of a COVID pandemic where our community, our American Indian community, saw probably 4 times the necessary care related with complications related to COVID, whether it's from asthma, diabetes, heart disease, homelessness, poor diet. And we saw twice as many deaths in our community as other populations. And so I would hope that you would all get out there and get those vaccinations as best you can. I know my local grocery store has a pharmacy, and they were able to get me in pretty quickly and get that done before our legislative session starts. But also think about your children. I know there is a big movement against vaccinating children, but when we, like my generation, I remember when we would get terrible cases of chicken pox. Whooping cough is coming back, and that's actually a killer. Measles, mumps, rubella, all of those are really serious health issues when it comes to our youngest. And remember, they are our next generation. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to be healthy and happy throughout their life. And if this is one thing we can do, I hope that you would all suggest it. Again, I realize there are those that are not comfortable with vaccinations, but let's make sure that we are taking the best care of each other as we possibly can. It's the 9th of September, 9th of January, and that means that the Minnesota State Legislature will begin in less than a week. We are scheduled to begin on January 14th, but this year is unusual, and we always think that each year is going to be a little unusual for whatever reasons, but this session is going to be very, very unusual because of the status of both the House and the Senate as far as the distinction of who is in the majority and who is not in the majority. In the Senate, we have lost one of our very, very beloved members, Carrie Dietzick, who was a state senator for a number of years, represented Northeast Minneapolis and a bit of Southeast Minneapolis, passed away. She was battling cancer for the last 2 years, and we just very recently lost her, which means that we need to have a special election. And that special election won't be done until the end of the month of January. But in the meantime, that leaves the Senate in an even category, even number of state senators for the DFL, the Democrats, and even number of Republicans. And so there is a discussion about will we or how will we share the leadership positions without disrupting the committees, without disrupting the leadership of our committees and the work that we do over here. And that's even, we know the outcome, where we can assume the outcome that the Democrats will take the majority again on the 28th when we, or after the election on the 28th. But that's not the case. That's happening over in the Minnesota House of Representatives, where they are debating who actually is in the majority. The House Republicans plan to exercise their rights as being in the majority on the first day. And this all stems from, again, a special election where a member of the DFL party was found to not be a resident of the district that he was elected into, and so he could not be seated in the Minnesota House, which leads, again, to a special election that will take place on the 28th. And then there is a discussion about the validity, even though the courts have decided that the Democrat from Shakopee actually won the election after reviewing the votes from, I believe, 20 ballots that had been thrown away, and it was determined that Brad Tapke actually was the winner. But the Minnesota Republicans in the House do not see it that way, and so they plan to force a power sharing agreement. And so we'll see how that happens. I know that the Minnesota House members are at odds as to how this is all going to play out. But the Democrats, in a press conference earlier this week, the Speaker, Melissa Hortman, said that the DFL members aren't planning on being at the Capitol on the first day of the legislative session if Republicans don't honor their power sharing agreement that was negotiated after November 5th election. So they actually did negotiate and come to an agreement on power sharing, and that looks like each committee will have a Democrat as a chair and a Republican as a chair, and they will share the process of governing over their committees. So that would mean that the Democrats would have the hearing, would be in charge of the hearing on one day in the committee, and Republicans the next, and they would have to find a way to come together at the end to find agreement on legislation that we will pass. At the end of the day, we all wonder how this is all going to play out. I think we all have to manage our expectations as far as what and how much will get passed. But it is a budget year, and it is important that we put a budget out there for the state of Minnesota for the best of our constituents. And that's exactly what we as Democrats plan to do, both in the House and in the Senate. But how that all plays out, we just won't know. And so it will be, as we all say, a very interesting session, one we haven't seen quite before like this. But just know that we'll all be doing the very best that we can to make sure that we're representing our constituents in the very best way possible. So I think we need to take a break right now, and I'll be back just as soon as we're done with our break. Wopila Tonka.
Thank you, Mary. Great update. All right, you're listening to Native Roots Radio, and we'll be right back after this quick break with more updates from Minnesota Senator Mary Kunesh.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
J&S Bean Factory is a Native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Everyone likes a litter-free ride on Metro Transit buses and trains, so pitch in. Take pride in your ride and take your trash off with you when you get off at your stop. You'll find trash bins at every Metro station. Want to help clean up transit stops in your neighborhood? Join the hundreds who volunteer to adopt a stop and keep it picked up. Learn more at metrotransit.org/adopt-a-stop. That's metrotransit.org/adopt-a-stop.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
It's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to struggle. And it's okay to ask for help. It's important that we support one another and work together to end the stigma so that we can start to tell a different story about mental health and well-being in our community. If you're looking for support for yourself or want to find resources for a loved one, visit makeitokay.org to get started. That's makeitokay.org.
Oh, this is Dallas Goldtooth, and you're listening to the Native Roots Radio. Hoka, hecha, wecha.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Native American Community Clinic on Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis, honoring health and tradition. We're back now with our update from Minnesota Senator Mary Kunesh.
On and back, State Senator Mary Kunesh here again. I just want to share with you, too, that some of the things that have been going on, it not only legislatively connected, but some other things that have been going on around Minnesota. Today, I spent most of my day at the MIAC meeting, the quarterly meeting. And MIAC is the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council that we have here in Minnesota. And this council is a governmental council, and it's there for us to use as a resource and to sort of monitor what goes on in our state when it comes to the what's going on between the commissioners, the commissions, governmental affairs, how they can advocate for the tribes here in Minnesota. And so it's really an incredibly valuable tool for us to use as legislators, but also for state government and the community, because we can kind of sieve everything through MIAC, and they will help make sure that things are in order, that the tribes are in agreement with legislation or other issues that are happening, and they can help disseminate the information to the tribes and the tribal leaders. So they always are so well organized and had a long list, days of presentations around what's happening in state government and how it affects our tribes, as well as our urban communities, our rural communities, and then it's an opportunity for us to ask questions back and forth. So I was there as the representative from the Senate. Representative Heather Keeler was there to represent the House. And lots of really good discussion. One thing I want to point out is that we did have an honoring for our very dear friend and colleague, Boys Fort Chair, Kathy Chavers. She is resigning from her seat as the chair of Boys Fort because she recognizes that she's worn out and she needs to take care of her own mental health. And as she told me today, or she told us that this winter she hit a deer, and that was kind of the end of it. You know, she's always taking care of people. She's taking care of her tribes. She's taking care of her family, and she hit her fourth deer since last spring, and that was kind of the last straw for her. So she let us know that she is stepping down from her seat to attend to her mental health, which I think is absolutely brave and honorable for her. Mental health issues have been hidden and thrown under the rug for so long. We didn't talk about it. We didn't acknowledge it. We didn't treat it. And Kathy's really taking a brave step to do that. So come the end of January, Boys Fort will have a new chair, and we'll still have Kathy. She says she's going to be doing work outside of the tribe, and I know that everybody will be happy to see her and support her, but mostly we want her to tend to her own personal care, and we want her to be around for a really, really, really long time. I think one of her biggest successes was that she, along with her council, were able to restore more than 28,000 acres of land to the tribe just a couple of years ago. And she's just been an incredible advocate, not only for her tribe, but for Indian people anyway. And so I want to wish once again, Chair Kathy Chavers from Boys Fort, congratulations on all the incredible work that you've done, but also we look forward to your next big adventure, and I hope you'll include all of us there. At the MIAC meeting, we heard from all different commissioners on housing, public safety, education, veterans, all of those things. But one thing that I especially was very excited to learn was that our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives license plates, the specialty license plates that we created, are doing really, really well. So here in Minnesota, we allow these specialty license plates, and you have to have them approved through the legislature. Last year, I helped design and create, along with the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives Office, a license plate that individuals can purchase when they are buying their license plate, and there's an additional fee that goes along with that, as well as every year there's a small fee that's attached to that. And we created the MMIR license plate, and today we were told that over 3,000 license plates have been issued since February 14th when they first came out, and that means that it's around $10,000 that is going to go into the reward fund in the MMIR office. I've always been concerned that there wouldn't be enough funding for the office, and of course $10,000 doesn't make a dent in what it takes to run that office, but at least it will provide opportunities for the staff to investigate cold cases, as well as to investigate current cases. It will allow for them to offer rewards, to do advertising and education. And so I couldn't be more proud of the fact that we've been able to issue over 3,000 plates. So Minnesotans, when you're going to get your new license plate, please consider purchasing a Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives license plate. There's a lot going on here in Minnesota with our state legislature. We're so, as I mentioned, we are very close to, these even Steven tied Minnesota House and Minnesota Senate. And we have a couple of special elections that are going to be happening here at the end of the month. So Minnesotans in Senate District 40B and Senate District 60, you have a special election coming up on January 28th. In 40B, you will be electing a new House member, and in Senate District 60, you will be electing a new senator. And I hope that you take some time to look up that information if you're in those districts and learn about the candidates that are running to fill those seats and do your due diligence to understand what those people can do as your representative. It's so important that you get out and vote. There'll be, in District 60, there will be a primary, and then both of them will have the election on the 28th. So that's not something to forget. I will remind you before that, but in the meantime, please look at those candidates and what's happening, and be sure that you get out there and vote again on the 28th, District 40B and District 60. I see that my time is up. I want to wish you all a wonderful weekend and another great week. Our legislature should begin this coming week, so we'll see what happens there. But in the meantime, please take care of yourself. Please take care of your own personal mental health and watch for those that are struggling with theirs, and be a good relative. Be a good relative to your neighbor, to your sister, to your brother, to your family member, to your coworker. So everybody take care. Wopi Latanka, Chimigwich.
Pinagigi Mary, and welcome back for Native Roots Radio's 9th season. We appreciate you so much on our program and all that you do in the state of Minnesota and for our Native communities here. I want to shout out, we have the Dakota Winter Teaching Celebration going on this Saturday, January 11th. Just wanted to make sure I got that date right. That'll be at the St. Paul Battle Creek Outdoor Rec Center. I believe it's off Winthrop Street. And 11 to 4 Saturday, there's going to be outdoor and indoor activities for all. It's a free event all day, and it's open to people of all backgrounds. There'll be some, I think, like over 20 Indigenous vendors, artisan vendors. So if you have some leftover holiday cash you're willing to spend, please support some local Indigenous artists. They really, really appreciate it, and they make beautiful things. They'll also have some kick sledding, free cross-country skiing. You're going to learn how to make snowshoes, and then learn, of course, about some Dakota history and teachings. So that'll be really fun. Again, free, and this Saturday, 11 to 4, Battle Creek, St. Paul. Up next, we have Wendy Pilot with the new Sacred Animals, and Robert hops on with us for that. But this is producer Haley Cherry, and I'm signing off for the weekend. So I wish all of you a safe and fun and happy weekend ahead, and we will be back next week. I'm going to leave here with a little bit of Keith Sokola, Uncle Keith, with Indian Cars for Fun Friday on Native Roots Radio.
I've been driving in my Indian car with the pound of the wheels drumming in my brain. My dash is dusty, my plates are expired. Please, Mr. Officer, let me explain. I got to make it to a powwow tonight. I'll be singing 49 down by the riverside, looking for sugar, riding in my Indian car.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
J&S Bean Factory is a Native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
It's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to struggle. And it's okay to ask for help. It's important that we support one another and work together to end the stigma so that we can start to tell a different story about mental health and well-being in our community. If you're looking for support for yourself or want to find resources for a loved one, visit makeitokay.org to get started. That's makeitokay.org.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Oh! My wolf sounded hurt.
Hopefully not.
Get something in my foot. Oh! Hey, I want to introduce co-founder of Native Roots Radio, and we're on our 9th season. Wendy Pilot. Wendy's been an animal advocate for many years. You started as a little grasshopper, right? When you were little?
I don't remember the first time I
do you
started
remember
with that. I know I've always loved animals. I've always had a really deep connection with
And you
animals.
didn't want to eat meat when you were little, too.
That's right. Yeah, from a very young age.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You were stubborn, and people didn't know that that was a thing back
when
in
I was
the day.
older, my mom apologized to me for torturing me. Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Hanaji Hihani. That means cares for them. I was given that name by my Dega Curtis. Curtis goes by Mashke Hanajinga, which means walks on white clouds. I'm a humane policy volunteer leader for the Humane Society of the United States, and I work on animal issues at the local and state level. I'm really looking forward to getting started here in 2025 to see what we can get done.
Yeah.
But the Humane Society of the United States does things locally, does things nationally, and also worldwide. So
It was a dramatic pause.
it is. I had a
World.
little hiccup. A
Oh,
worldwide.
It wasn't spit.
No,
That's good.
totally not. So in 2024, the Humane Society of the United States took many actions to help animals.
Oh,
yeah.
let's hear it.
Okay, so they provided services to over 16,200 pets in core communities and sent 440 truckloads of pet food and supplies to 46 states and Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Yeah, they do a lot of good work.
Wow.
So like the wildfires in LA, unless if an area or a state is having a really big problem, they call on the Humane Society of the United States. The Humane Society doesn't just go in there and, take over and start helping animals. They have to be asked to come and work with our, people and help us. I think California has a really good
branch.
I think that they have lots of people there that are doing the work. But if they do need the Humane Society of the United States, they will call on them. And then they go in with their vans and their volunteers and their veterinarians, and
not to be
they do all that
confused with
stuff.
the tennis shoe and the skateboard.
What is that?
The vans.
Oh, right,
Oh,
vans.
this
Exactly.
the shoe.
Yeah. So what else do they do? Promoting humane conflict resolution. So more than 130 animal care and control organizations signed with HSUS Wild Neighbors Pledge. The HSUS also tested new translocation techniques for prairie dogs and created a recovery program for vultures in South Africa.
Do prairie dogs bark?
I don't know what they do, but in the area where the prairie dogs were, they had this like a little pandemic, like a prairie dog pandemic.
Mhm.
And so they went in and saved as many prairie dogs as they can and relocated them. So, yeah.
Wonder if that was.
And there's a recovery program for vultures in South Africa. I'd like to read a little bit more about that, but they work worldwide.
We used to use that term vultures back in the day. It's
Mhm.
not a good thing.
Well, I'm sure that they're needed somehow. I mean, everything
Absolutely.
on the planet has a use.
Absolutely.
Everything. So
Maybe it was from the cartoons. I don't know.
exactly. So HSUS defended state laws that keep unsafe products off store shelves,
That's big.
including Proposition 12. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. The HSUS also fought against the EATS Act, which would have weakened Proposition 12 and similar laws. So Proposition 12 means that, like in California right now, they will not get any eggs, meat, pork from any suppliers that keep their animals in confined places.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Isn't that huge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you kidding
So,
me?
yep. And again, it really depends on who is in office and who can change these laws. The farmers, the people who keep these animals in these really, pigs in like these gestational crates, and the pig can't move or turn around for 2 years of its life, which is really horrific. It's just terrible the way these animals are treated. But Proposition 12 and the EATS Act demands that these animals are able to walk around. These animals are kept in humane, situations, so they don't have to live like that. So we need to vote in people who will, keep these acts
Protective
in
of-
place,
yeah,
because they
protective
could
laws.
change at any time. Like, we were talking about, yesterday, our Minnesota legislators and House
Right.
and everything. We don't know what's going to happen. We had a trifecta of Democrats before.
Mhm.
So we had, protection for the wolves. We had
Yep.
protection for, these animals. And now that the chairs are, the seats are changing,
Mhm.
the protections for the animals will also change. So you have to really look into, what you care about and who you want to put into office.
And look out, Canada.
Look, oh my God, I can't even.
Exactly.
Okay, this is one thing that we've worked
Or
on, and
Iceland.
I've worked on for a really long time, preventing the sale of puppy mill dogs.
Yes.
The Humane Society of the United States helped pass laws in California, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, New York, Oregon, and
Wow.
Washington that prohibit the sale of dogs and cats in pet stores.
Yes.
Now, these
Good.
whole states, we're trying to get Minnesota to be on that list. But we're going like city to city. We got
Right.
St. Paul, we got Eden Prairie, we got
You got St. Paul.
we got St. Paul, we got Carver, we got, I don't know, I think
Bemidji?
there's not Bemidji, Cloquet.
Cloquet. That's French.
Yeah. So we've gotten a lot of the cities, and we're keep working on more and more and more. So that's something that's right right, near and dear to my heart is preventing the sale of puppy mill dogs, because we had a puppy mill dog, Gracie, who we talked about her for a million years.
Poor
but she
baby.
was a puppy mill breeder dog who was kept in an indoor facility, and she was there, just her main purpose
7 years.
for 7 years, just pumping out puppies to be sold in pet stores. So a responsible breeder will not have their puppies in a pet store.
Right.
They want to know who's buying them. They want to meet the family.
You want to make sure there's a picture of past dogs hanging from their wall, right?
Exactly. They want to make sure, they want to do a home visit. They want to make sure that, their dog, this is a responsible breeder, and they're far and few between.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to look for a puppy, please adopt, don't shop, and really do your research on the breeder if that's the way you want to go. I mean, there's some people who just want a certain breed and they go to a breeder, but really the responsible ones are so far and few between. It's really finding a needle in a haystack, to tell you the truth. And a lot of the really responsible breeders will have you sign a contract saying, if at any time during the life of this dog you don't want it anymore, we want the dog back.
Right.
We don't want the dog to end up in a shelter.
Exactly.
We don't want the dog to be euthanized. We want the dog back. Now that is a responsible breeder. And they'll only breed their dog one time per year.
Yeah.
Not like Gracie. She was bred twice a year until her body was... couldn't take it anymore. Then she was auctioned off for $35.
Well, this is the 9th year of our sacred animal section, and I appreciate that, Wendy.
It's always my pleasure, and I can't wait to get my my hands dirty again and work on some really good animal issues. And we really have to work on saving our Minnesota wolf this year, because they're going to have a little bit of trouble.
That's right. Hey, we're still here. We are the 7th generation. This has been Native Roots Radio.
And free Leonard Peltier now.